Hi, this is Robert Thibodeau of the Mayflower Bookshop, mayflowerbookshop.com. And today I would like to share with you the Emerald Tablet of Hermes. Sometimes it's called, and I'm not sure how to pronounce it, the Smaragdin, but it really means Emerald Tablet of Hermes. And there's a lot of myths about it. Many people say that Alexander the Great, in his travels through the Hermetic lands of Egypt, discovered it. I don't know, but it's very famous. The Kabbalion is a product of this Hermetic literature. And Hermetic means half revealed, half concealed. The whole idea of Hermetics was that something could be revealed to you, but you have to have the other half. Like I could tell you a major spiritual truth. I could read you Rudolf Steiner or Tibetan Buddhist or put it in my own words. I could distill the wisdom experience in my etheric body and share it with you from an egoic astral etheric plane or something. And there's several different levels to all these things. The idea here is that Hermetics means half revealed, half concealed, or it means as above, so below, that the macrocosm of the whole cosmos is intimately connected to the psyche or soul within ourselves, and that each human being can, out of freedom and love, come to weave and harmonize the relationship between the greater and lesser, the higher and lower, the inner and outer, the reconciliation of opposites by holding this tension. Behold, I came to bring a new heaven and earth, Jesus says in the New Testament. And this whole idea of this rebirthing from the great mother and father, whether we think the father's the fatherland and Osiris that's born every spring anew, or we think, and then we think that the stars in the cosmos are the divine feminine, and the 9 muses of the Greeks are the angels, rather than later they be turned into the Dionysian archetypes of the 9 levels of angels: angels, archangels, archai, seraphim, cherubim, thrones, dominions, exousiae, karyotetes. There's this like whole relationship that comes out later where the 9 muses are transformed into the men's club with modern religion. Be it as it may, today I'd like to share with you some Hermetic wisdom, and I'd like to go to a book that Rudolf Steiner said was actually written with the hand of H.P. Blavatsky, but it came through Christian Rosenkreutz. The Rosy Cross, a spiritual intelligence that would bridge materialistic science with the inner religion of the metamorphosis of the soul, the awakening of the spiritual soul. And I'm in Isis Unveiled, page 506. Blavatsky's quoting Plato. God geometrizes, said Plato. And God always plays the geometer, a student of Plato said. He praises geometry as a science that takes off men from sensible objects and makes them apply themselves to the intelligible and eternal nature, the contemplation of which is the end of philosophy, as a view of the mysteries of initiation into holy rites. What's the end of philosophy and the end of learning? A radical stillness that distills your experience in all the spiritual teachings of the sages of all ages into the wisdom and will of the gods or virtues. I say. So back to Blavatsky. God geometrizes, said Plato. The laws of nature are the thoughts of God, exclaimed Ørsted 2,000 years later. His thoughts are immutable, repeated the solitary student of Hermetic lore. Therefore, it is in the perfect harmony and equilibrium of all things that we must seek the truth. This kind of like where you hold the compass and it goes to the right and left, or the pendulum swings to the right and left, and there's this harmony. There's a harmony and balance There's the oneness and the harmony, the consort to oneness. And then there's the Holy Spirit that animates ever new creative ways that we can be participant with it. So back to Blavatsky. And thus proceeding from the indivisible unity, he found emanating from it two contrary forces, each acting through the other and producing equilibrium. And the three were but one, the Pythagorean eternal monad. The primordial point is a circle. The circle squaring itself from the four cardinal points becomes a quaternary, the perfect square, having at each of its four angles a letter of the mirific name, the sacred tetragrammaton, the sacred tetragram. It is the four Buddhas who came and have passed away. By the way, I just want to give a thought. We're awaiting the fifth Buddha, which is the fifth root evolution of humanity. It is the four Buddhas who came and have passed away, the Pythagorean tetractys, absorbed and resolved in the one eternal no being. I mean, here you can think, I'm just saying that you can think of the cross, the four directions of the Native American Indian. You can think of the cross as the physical, etheric, astral, and the ego. Looking for the triad, the higher trinity of universal thinking, feeling, and willing, Atma Buddha Manas, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, Osiris, Isis, Horus, Father, Mind, Holy Mother, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. All these trinities that raise, I mean, we can think of a cross and that you're united with the center of the cross where the rose blooms, the idea of the Rosicrucians. Stand up straight and hold your arms open, and the heart is beginning to think and have intelligence. Blavatsky says, it is the four Buddhas who came and have passed away, the Pythagorean tetractys, absorbed and resolved by the one, eternal, no being. Tradition declares that on the dead body of Hermes at Hebron was found by an Isaram, an initiate, the tablet known as the Smagadin, the Emerald Tablet. It contains in a few sentences the essence of the Hermetic wisdom. To those who read but with their bodily eyes, the precepts will suggest nothing new or extraordinary, for it merely begins by saying that it speaks not fictitious things, but that which is true and most certain. The Emerald Tablet, Blavatsky quotes here. Now, what is below is like that which is above, and what is above is similar to that which is below, to accomplish the wonders of one thing. As all things were produced by the mediation or meditation of one being, so all things were produced from this one by adoption. Its father is the sun, its mother is the moon. It is the cause of all perfection throughout the whole earth. Its power is perfect if it is changed into earth. Separate the earth from the fire, the subtle from the gross, acting prudently and with judgment. Ascend with the greatest sagacity, ascend with the greatest energetic and wisdom from the earth to heaven, and then descend again to earth, and unite together the power of things, inferior and superior. Thus you will possess the light of the whole world, and all obscurity will fly away from you. This thing has more fortitude than fortitude itself, because it will overcome every subtle thing and penetrate every solid thing. By it the world was formed. This mysterious thing is, Blavatsky says, this mysterious thing is the universal magical agent, the astral light. which is the correlations of its forces furnishes, which in the correlations of its forces furnishes the Alchemist, the Philosopher's Stone, and the Elixir of Life. The Alchemist, the Universal Solvent, the Philosopher's Stone, and immortality, basically. Okay, she goes on, Blavatsky, HPB. Hermetic philosophy names it Azoth, the soul of the world soul, the celestial virgin, the great Magnes, and so on, the great Magus. Physical science knows it as heat, light, electricity, and magnetism. But ignoring its spiritual properties and the occult potency contained in ether, rejects everything it ignores. It explains and depicts the crystalline forms of the snowflakes, their modification of a hexagonal prism which shoot out its infinity of delicate needles. It has studied them so perfectly that it has become even calculated that the most wondrous mathematical precision, that all these needles diverge from each other at an angle of 60 degrees. Can it tell us well the cause of this endless variety of the most exquisite forms, each of which is a most perfect geometrical figure in itself? These frozen star-like and flower-like blossoms may be, for all materialistic science knows, a shower of messages snowed by spiritual hands from the worlds above for spiritual eyes below to read. The philosophical cross, the two lines running in opposite directions, the horizontal and the perpendicular, the height and the breadth, which the geometrizing deity divides as the intersecting point which forms the magical as well as the scientific quaternary. When it is inscribed within the perfect square, is the basis of the occultist. Within the mystical precinct lies the master key, which opens the door of every science, physical as well as spiritual. It symbolizes our human existence, for the circle of life circumscribes the 4 points of the cross, which represent in succession birth, life, death, and immortality. Everything in this world is a trinity completed by its quaternary. In ancient nations, the deity was a trine, a trinity, supplemented by a goddess, the Arbe, or fourfold god. I repeat, Blavatsky makes a note, in ancient nations, the deity, they don't use the word God, they coming forth by day. In other words, the Father's the unity, oneness, primordial darkness of Neoplatonism, and that the only begotten son of Hermes, or the Neoplatonists, was this only begotten son, the deity, the day. The deity was a triune trinity supplemented by a goddess. Gosh, if this doesn't sound like the foundation stone by Rudolf Steiner, nothing does. So here's Blavatsky talking about this trinity being completed by the quaternary, and every element is divisible on the same principle. And she talks about it represents in succession birth, that we're born by the Father, and life and death and immortality. Amazing. Okay, let's continue. Physiology can divide man ad infinitum, as physical science has divided the 4 primal and principal elements in several dozens of others. She would not succeed in changing either. Birth, life, and death will ever be a trinity completed only at the cyclic end. Even were science to change the longed-for immortality into annihilation, it still will ever be a quaternary, for God geometrizes. Therefore, perhaps alchemy will one day be allowed to talk of her salt, mercury, sulfur, and azoth, her symbols in mirific letters, and repeat with the exponent of the synthesis of organic compounds that it must be remembered that the grouping is no play of fancy, and that a good reason can be given for the position of every letter. So I wanted to share again this idea, this like what Blavatsky calls, like earlier before this, she says, attach thyself, says the alchemist, to the 4 letters of the tetragram, disposed in the following manner. The letters of the ineffable name are there, although thou mayest not discern them at first. The incommunicable axiom is Kabbalistically contained therein. And this is what is called the magic arcanum by the masters. The arcanum, the 4th emanation of the Akasha, the principle of life, which is represented in its 3rd transmutation by the fiery sun, the eye of the world, or of Osiris, as the Egyptian termed it. An eye tenderly watching its youngest daughter, wife and sister, Isis, our Mother Earth. See what Hermes, the thrice greatest master, says of her. Her father is the sun, her mother is the moon. It attracts and caresses and then repulses her by a projectile power. It is for the Hermetic student to watch its motions, to catch its subtle currents, to guide and direct them with the help of the Athanar, the Archimedean lever of the alchemist. Earlier, Blavatsky is talking about hydrogen, oxygen, and carbon as this trinity that can form a cross. Can the physicist tell us, he who sees and examines it daily? Aye, he sees, but does he comprehend the secret ciphered characters traced by the divine finger on every seashell in the ocean's deep, on every leaf that trembles in the breeze, in the bright star whose stellar lines are in his sight, but so many more or less luminous lines of hydrogen? God geometrizes. So we go back to, I just wanted to share with you some of this, this is a book that Rudolf Steiner and Manly Haw read, that Dr. Wilde, the Neoplatonist, helped her write. Steiner says this is by the Rosicrucians that we're all trying to figure out that this is a book that he wrote. But how many Steinerites or Anthroposophers have even looked at this book? And we're looking at the Hermetic side of things, the emerald tablet. What is below is like that which is above. And what is above is similar to that which is below to accomplish the wonders of one thing. Now, isn't this an invocation of the macrocosm and the microcosm? Isn't this an invocation of a relationship of heaven to earth? Isn't this an invocation of the cosmos that's forever moving, dying, and getting born again, and the earth, while you're on it, seems to hold still? And then the emerald tablet. As all things were produced by the mediation of one being, so all things were produced from this one by adaptation. So this is the one in the many, and the meditation on one being that shines out in the infinite rays of the sun. The next line is, its father is the sun, its mother is the moon. We have this idea, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 9 stages. This is like the spiritual hierarchies. Just like the 9 muses or the 9 spiritual hierarchy of Dionysius the Areopagite, which could have been from 3 to 7,000, 5,000 years before that, really. Could be a text from ancient Egypt or India or Atlantis, the Sun Oracle. That which is below is like that which is above. And what is above is similar to that which is below to accomplish the wonders of one thing. As all things were produced by the mediation of one thing, so all things were produced by this one by adoption. Its father is the sun, its mother is the moon. And this might be the higher triad. And then we go into the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. When we say sun and moon, we're talking about spirit and matter, inner and outer, spirit and form. But what's going to wake us up? Let's keep reading. Is the cause of all perfection through the whole earth. Well, there is no perfection. There's only wholeness. It's a Jungian psychology idea. Go to the Father and all else will be made perfect. Go to the Father who is perfect. I mean, these kind of statements like that. We're going to the oneness and everything's perfect again. But once you manifest and come out into matter, once you move into the cosmos, there's karma. Its power is perfect if it is changed into earth. So this kind of perfection is not the perfection of oneness and primordial darkness of the Father. This perfection is when you can find the oneness in earth. A oneness that's deeply buried within each one of us. Then it says, separate the earth from the fire. This is alchemy. You separate the subtle from the gross. Separate the earth from the fire. Separate what holds still from the ever-moving burning fire of desire. Separate the subtle from the gross, the subtle mind from gross, the more still mind, virtue mind, acting prudently and with judgment. And then when you do this, at the 7th level, ascend with the greatest sagacity from the earth to heaven, and then descend again to earth. Now, this is very similar to Rudolf Steiner's butterfly meditation. We won't go into it right away, but you catch the butterfly trying to take off for the heavens, you burn it, and then you eat the ashes. And this is a whole magical thing of being able to digest the ashes of the past. Rudolf Steiner says, if you want to be initiated, you have to destroy your biography. I think that's a bad translation. I think at the end of his life, he'd more likely say, if you want to be initiated, you have to compost your past, your biography, and your past lives. You compost it and digest your experience into the stillness. You distill the experience with virtue, spiritual teachings, and stillness. You transform and metamorphosize and compost all your experiences into the fertilizer for the future. This is real forgiving. For means future. Give yourself to the future. So at this point, at the 7th step of the Emerald Tablet, after you separate earth from fire and subtle from gross, acting prudently with judgment, those 6 statements, those 3 statements of opposites, separate the earth from the fire, the subtle from the gross, acting from prudently and with judgment. We go to the 7th step of the Emerald Tablet. Ascend with the greatest sagacity from the earth to heaven, and then descend again to earth. And unite together the power of things inferior with superior and superior. You're uniting inferior with superior. Thus you will possess the light of the whole world, and all obscurity will fly away from you. Ye are the light of the world, it says in the later Christian Bible. And yet it also says ye are the salt of the earth. So this whole idea of uniting heaven and earth. And then the 8th step, this thing has more fortitude than fortitude itself, because it will overcome every subtle thing and penetrate every solid thing. Because, see, you have this light of the world, you have this infinite love and virtue, and you also have the radical stillness, still learning until the whole world's enlightened and at peace. The subtle is the 3 gunas in the Bhagavad Gita overcome by wisdom and truth, passion of knowing. So we move to the 9th level. By it the world was formed, and we create a new world. If we look back, Blavatsky says before the Emerald Tablet, the primordial point is a circle. So in other words, you have the point at the center, but then you have the circumference of infinite lines going to that circumference and circle. The circle squaring itself from the 4 cardinal points becomes a quaternary. We are now on the 4th earth, There's 3 to go. It's a perfect square. It's the 4 Gospels, the 4 Vedas, the 4 Buddhas who have come and passed away, and we're looking for that eternal. We're looking for the universal mind, the thinking in all things in the harmony. We're looking for the purified astral body and the purified etheric body of the rhythms of the cosmos and the wisdom. And we're looking for radical truth of stillness, holding it all. In my stillness, in your stillness, we can walk through walls. But it's not safe. It's nihilistic and existential if we don't have this kind of like wisdom from experience and compassion to go with that stillness. So I think that this is a really good beginning. It's, under a half hour beginning, as above, so below, and trying to find the redemption of Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. I mean, another way to put it is in a talk I gave at the Anthroposophical Society in Getty's Road in Ann Arbor. I talked about the Philosopher's Stone as being the Saturn evolution of a transmutable fire of dark warmth and oneness, and maybe a deep, deep sense of love in a way that's beyond love. And then we go to, you could say that that's the Saturn evolution. Then we go to the Sun evolution, which is an alchemist, alkahest. It's different ways of saying it, but we could say that it's the ultimate universal solvent. So we could say that the Philosopher's Stone is the Sun evolution. The Sun resolves and dissolves everything. And then we go to the Moon evolution, which is the Elixir of Life. It's either the drink of the Celts before you incarnate on the earth. You forget your past and you only have conscience and wonder and wisdom to remind you every once in a while. And then we land on the earth, which is the Azalth possibility. But we could also say that the Philosopher's Stone is Pluto, a radical selflessness. The separate ego is dark, but it's the warmth of a higher love union. And then we have Neptune, which is the universal solvent, or universal love and community and ideals, or just illusion. I mean, there's a shadow side, but we're looking at the positive side, and that's Neptune. And then you have Uranus as the elixir of life. Uranus squares at 21 years old, and 42 it opposes, and 62 or 3 you're going to get another square, and 84 is a Uranus return. And these are times where you have this gusto of eternal youth. I mean, I think like truth will hold you still, and love will awaken you to the thrill of the universe. The eros is the rose. Eros spells rose, and eros is our higher self that unites us. It's those things that unite us in love and truth with the universe, that we're ready to go. And I think Uranus is this quickening, and Neptune is a dissolving of separate self into universal solvent. It's a universal solving of the mystery, and it's the mysteries. And Pluto is a radical sacrifice and surrender and renunciation and selflessness for a higher truth and birth to come yet out of the suffering. So this is an introduction to the Emerald Tablet and the key of birth and life and death and immortality. And I think that birth is obviously the limbs, and this eternal life is the heart. The birth is out of the lower third of your body, the birth. And life is the heart and the breath. And death is your thinking. And then comes the idea of immortality, if you can get to the I am, the everything, nothing in a mind. Everything in this world is a trinity completed by the quaternary. This is what Blavatsky says in the Isis Unveiled that I read earlier. It symbolizes our human existence. This master key. For the circle of life circumscribes mystical precinct lies the master key which opens the door of every science, physical as well as spiritual. It symbolizes our human existence. For the circle of life circumscribes the 4 points of the cross, which represent in succession birth, life, death, and immortality. We find that immortality, and then we go back into the thinking, feeling, and willing as Nirmanakaya. The Tibetan Buddhist in The Voice of the Silence by Blavatsky, she talks like Steiner about going for the warmth of the heart up to the thinking. But then we direct it back to the world, see, and we are the world at that point. We don't just go back to our separate self. Om Mani Padme Hum, another fourfold. Om is the eternal self, the Christ self, the Buddha self, the Buddha mind, the nature. The Dionysius, the Mithras, the Hermes, the Christ, the Christos of the Greeks. Om, the O is the emptiness, stillness, selflessness, and with the physical, emotional, mental, the three. The M is the three put sideways. It's the 3 pi. The O is emptiness practice or wholeness. It's the Orpheus mysteries, the Omphalos, the Greek mysteries of Orpheus that introduced the Dionysian mysteries, the Eleusinian mysteries. And the M is the middle letter, the heart. It's the emptiness, fullness, and rhythm of the heart that seeks to awaken and transform the physical, emotional, mental into spiritual thinking, feeling, and willing, whether you're in the nature of the soul or the nature of just being here now. So God bless you. Goddess bless you. And it's interesting that Blavatsky says that this trinity leads up to the goddess, which is the wisdom and the rebirthing. It's the mother principle that rebirths our life on earth and in the heavens, spiritual worlds, that we can bring together as above, so below. We bring these heaven and earth together to form a new society of peace and love on this planet. And that's the goal. There's a difference between intellectually understanding these things, and I'm sorry if it sounds so intellectual, these sharings I'm doing, but here's the point. Intellect is the booby prize. When you can't really get the apple pie and the enlightenment and the family of friends and the total metamorphosis, transmutation, transformation, transfiguration, transmutation, transubstantiation by the 3 higher worlds of the 3 lower worlds, so that we awaken up our eternal striving of our soul, our spiritual soul. You get the booby prize, intellectual understanding. But it's really, a lot of spiritual teachings are kind of intellectual, where people try to control stuff. And I'm saying that we really want the experience of oneness and our multiplicity, that we're connected. We're kind of in pieces all over the place with people we love and know, and our experiences in our life are pieces of us everywhere. Yet there's something very deep and profound and whole, that we're one. Can we discover the mind? And that takes work. And I think that a lot of people who are just in their feelings or just in their intellect, they haven't connected those two in a way that is applicable, that we can have the direct experience of the suffering, the striving, and the eternal, so that we can be full participants in being a fully human being, a full, real human being. And this is what Blavatsky in The Voice of the Silence is invoking and celebrating and sharing intellectually, intelligent-wise. And this is what Rudolf Steiner talks about in the Foundation Stone Meditation Laid in the Heart. Blavatsky's Heart Sutra, The Voice of the Silence, the Dalai Lama told me personally, it's a good version of the Heart Sutra, the Mahayana Prajna Pyramidas. The Mahayana, the great vehicle of compassion, and the Prajna is the grasp of everything and nothing, of the Pyramidas, the virtues, which Steiner talks about the virtues in How to Know the Higher Worlds. He talks about the virtues as opening the chakras and protecting them and making them sacred by virtues. So I hope you're getting it. A real spiritual sharing or teaching. You get it so you can think about it and repeat it a little bit to yourself. But the real thing is you want kind of an experience here and there where you kind of felt it. You got it, and you had glimpses of stuff, and you'd put it in your own words. The 101 levels, be careful of putting it too much in your own words, and try to study Theosophy and Anthroposophy and Tibetan Buddhism and Neoplatonism and Hermetics and Manly Haw and Hinduism and yoga. Try to study these things so you can see what they're saying, kind of try to figure out what they're saying. Osho, alchemy. I hope you had an experience. I hope you had a little more insight, and bless your heart. We'll return again. I've got more to do, more to share of these many things that I've studied, and I'm really happy to share them. So today was the Emerald Tablet. The Emerald, Lucifer was probably Blavatsky says in A Secret Doctrine that long ago and before that, the Divine Feminine fell from heaven to earth. And she's caused these the rebels of freedom and love, that they came to earth. The church made them into the bad guys, but it's the Divine Feminine that brings the Sophia. The Theosophy is the wisdom of God, and Anthroposophy is the wisdom of thinking, man, manas. The wisdom of deity and the wisdom of manas, thinking, coming to know these things for ourselves. It takes a hero that passes the 12 stages of initiation of the zodiac through the planetary evolution of the 7 Earths, that Hercules can come and free Prometheus, who tried to help people but got tied to the rock for giving them insights into their own immortality and higher truths. So these are deep, deep mysteries that are talked about in The Secret Doctrine and Isis Unveiled. And Rudolf Steiner continues this, to put it in a language that people can understand. Everybody's got a different way of saying it, but it's all dependent on us getting it and applying it in our own life. And may I offer all this up to Om Mani Padme Hum, Om, to the deity, our higher self, the future possibility of our Christ-like, Buddha-like becoming. And may it enter our manas, Om Mani Padme Hum, may it enter our minds, our hearts, and our will. And may we get it in our heart and rise to our higher thinking, transcendental, spiritual, golden mind founded in our heart. And may we return to the world in higher thinking, feeling, and willing to give ourselves to make this world a more peaceful place. And I hope that this works. Goddess bless you. I'll see you later next time. There's nothing more to say. Mayflower Bookshop, Robert Thibodeau, mayflowerbookshop.com. Bless your heart.